Well, hello again, guys. Now, as you would have noticed, I've been forced indoors once more, not because of the wind this time. It's relatively calm out there today. Yes, it's only mild gales. No, it's the rain this time. And if you think the wind played havoc with my hair, wait until you see what the rain does to this quiff. But that's part of the reason why I've come indoors. But no, it also gives us a chance to sample my little boy's wide collection of retro football jerseys, which he is into in the actual. I've managed to marry here the picture and the jersey this time, but there's also still that little nod to AC Milan just over my shoulder, and that is apt because I do want to talk today about Sandro Tonali. I will get to that. First of all, before we go any further with regards to Tonali, in the link in the description below, it's a piece I've absolutely loved pulling together this week, the inside story of Tonali's 10 months out, speaking to as many different people as possible to build that picture. It's made me super excited to see him back. Click on the link there, it'll take you through who knew he carved pumpkins and played Monopoly. Read the piece and you'll find out a hell of a lot more, dripping with detail. Like I say, really made me come out of it wishing the boy well, really, and really excited to see him, given the anticipation there is inside the club and the improvement he's made over that period. I'll talk more about that in just a second, but what I want to get to first, as the headline suggests, we were this morning with Eddie Howe, and he was asked about the possibility of signing both a centre-half and a right winger this window. And Eddie, for once, climbed down off the fence, dispensed with caution, and said, in answer to the question, no, we probably can't. Now, for him to commit to that, and this was something I wrote about last week in my Inside Newcastle column at Mail Sport, there isn't the money. If Newcastle put down the £65-70 million on Marc Guehi, a club record, there then isn't the scope to go and buy a right winger. And for me, that is dangerous. And I use the word dangerous for this reason. Newcastle's biggest success this summer is not going to be in bringing in Marc Guehi. By the way, we do believe this will happen now. We're expecting progress over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours, and the deal is edging somewhere towards £70 million, as my colleague Sammy Mockbell reported on Monday night. Now, that wouldn't be the biggest success. The biggest success of this window for me is keeping the three players they've got who are, if not world-class, going towards world-class. You know, Anthony Gordon, Bruno Guimaraes and Alexander Isak. Those three players are intrinsically linked now in terms of the contracts, in terms of their happiness. They'll be looking at each other thinking which one, if any, is going to blink first. I think they are Newcastle's three highest value players in terms of if they were on an open market and the level of suitor you would have for them. So to that end, to keep the three of them at the club not only keeps the team stronger, and not only sends a message to the rest of the squad as well, but it sends a message to others beyond that. You know, Newcastle still do retain that ambition to be that big club, to be that Champions League club that we all thought they were going to be, you know, during the first two and a half years of the Saudi ownership. Now, I've said this before, I think we rode a magic carpet during that first 2.5 years. I think there's been a degree of reality and the carpet has come back down to earth this summer, yet they still have managed to retain those three very important players, plus Joel into the new contract. And please, Newcastle, if you can, keep Kieran Trippier there this week. We will speak about that in just a second. But you can afford one season out of the Champions League for those three. I don't think you can afford two. So to that end, Newcastle, for me, had to build a team, a squad that was as strong as it possibly could be and that gave Eddie everything he needed to get that team back into the top four. Now, yes, Marc Guehi probably does improve the starting 11, but if that's at the expense of £70 million and a centre-back, is at the expense of not bringing in a right winger? Now, since the Saudis, since the new ownership group came in, approaching 3 years ago in October, Newcastle have needed a right winger. Every window we've gone into, it's been talk of strengthening in that area. Coming into this summer, as I reported in May time, I think it was, when I was wandering around Paris, Michael Olise was at the very top of their wanted list, a right winger. Now, for them to not bring in a single player in that position in approaching 3 years now, what will it be? Will it be the fifth window, sixth window? I can't even remember. But, you know, to not address that issue and to still have two players who were signed under Mike Ashley, regardless of what you think of them, Jacob Murphy and Miguel Almiron, that is just, I don't think that's good enough. I think that's dangerous because you look at the modern game now and look at the match down at Bournemouth on Sunday even. Where did Newcastle lack a threat and where did they only improve? You know, where did the goals come from? Both goals were created, Bournemouth's goal and Newcastle's goal, were created by white men, Semenyo for Bournemouth and Harvey Barnes coming on for Newcastle. Increasingly now, teams live and die by the success of goal scoring and creative wingers. Look at Arsenal Leonardo Trossard, Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli. Every team has got 2 or 3 or 4 in those areas. You look at Liverpool, you know, Diaz, Salah, Diogo Jota. Newcastle have got 2 real, what you would say, top wingers in those wide areas. That's Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes, yet they both play in the same position. And when I asked Eddie afterwards at the Vitality Stadium, can you see a scenario whereby one starts on the left, one starts on the right? He said, well, no, not really. Players have got to be comfortable starting off in their preferred position. Gordon wants to start on the left and Barnes wants to start on the left. So at that end, it still leaves a big weakness for me on the right. And I'm sure you guys would agree with that. So that's why I say it's dangerous to not have a top quality player who guarantees goals and guarantees assists in a pacey, direct threat from that area. Now, £70 million on Marc Guehi, I think he's good, but we've spoken about this before. I do think there is a case to be made for Newcastle losing. If that is the extent of what they can spend under PSR constraints, there's a case to be made for splitting that and backing yourself and backing your scouting network to go and find and go and unearth, as they have done previously. They had a brilliant record at this. Kamara, Isak and Gordon, the 3 key examples. They are 3 signings, and you know they're going to pay more for Marc Guehi than they paid for any of those 3. Go and back yourself to find that on the market out there, be that in the UK or probably more likely further beyond. So, yeah, guys, it would concern me, and for Eddie to give that answer this morning, I think that is, you know, there's 1 or 2 alarm bells going off for me, and I dare say for you guys, as to what state has left Newcastle going into this season with that attacking threat, or rather, without it in a real key area. And I tell you what, if they don't return a top 4, top 5 finish this season, whatever it takes to get Champions League, they'll certainly have money for a right winger next summer, because I don't think Gordon, Kamara or Isak will hang around for a second year without Champions League football. And what Newcastle have got to be better at is selling players. You know, they've got players there who potentially they could have sold to generate funds to give them that PSR wiggle room this summer. Almiron, chief among them, Callum Wilson, albeit the injury happened at a really unfortunate time, but they've got to be better at moving players on. And so far, they just haven't done that. What have the sales been? You know, the 2 PSR induced deals because of Anderson and Minty, but they were just satisfying a hole in the accounts. Before that, what has there been? Wood and Shelby to Nottingham Forest and Alan Saint-Maximin to a Saudi club where they probably didn't actually really maximise his value. So yeah, guys, I think it's still important just to, on the back of this, to say that Eddie was asked about, I don't think it's a case of support. Eddie feels supported. He said, you know, I'm borrowing his words direct from this morning there. I think it's more a case of the rules and the PSR hasn't allowed them to do what they want to do. But what I would come back to you and say on that is, well, everyone's working under the same constraints and the same parameters. It's your job. It's your job as a sporting director or a chief executive or the money man within the club. It's your job to build in those parameters. The commercial guys, it's your job to bring in more money, better sponsorship deals, to allow that, to move things around, the accountancy tricks, to be clever, to have themselves in a position now with 3 days left of the window and to say they are not signing a right winger. If you'd said me to that at the start of the summer, I would have thought it was ludicrous. I still do now. So there we go, guys. We'll have to see how this one plays out, but it doesn't look like a right winger is coming in. What might happen though, you may well laugh at this, and I tweeted this news yesterday, they are looking to sign another goalkeeper. Now, I think in the first video at the start of the pre-season, I'd said that I expected this to be the case and Newcastle would revisit the James Trafford deal, and that is because Eddie Howe doesn't really feel as if he's got a viable number 2, and while questions remain over Nick Pope proving his fitness over a prolonged period of time, I do think Eddie would like better in terms of that. Now, yes, they've got Martin Dubravka. I think Dubravka in the second half of last season showed he perhaps isn't good enough to come in and be a Premier League goalkeeper now. Beyond that, John Ruddy is John Ruddy, a veteran goalkeeper who should only really be there as the 3rd choice at best. And then Vlachodimos from Nottingham Forest, who was only really brought in as an accountancy trick to persuade Nottingham Forest to pay the £35 million they did for Elliot Anderson, you know, because the Vlachodimos fee was, from what we're led to believe, without putting a number on it, very, very substantial, and probably would raise eyebrows if we do actually reveal the full extent of that. So yeah, I'd probably expect him to go out. There's interest from Anderlecht, but that's got to happen first for Newcastle to then do a deal for Trafford, which would probably be a loan deal. It was described to me last night as 60-40 in favour of happening, but still a little bit of work to go there. And I do think that would be a good sign. I do think, without knowing a great deal about James Trafford, if they believe he's better than what they've got, we saw last year, if Newcastle ever lose Nick Pope, what a difference it makes to not have a keeper really close to him in terms of ability to come in. So I wouldn't complain about that too much, but I would about not getting a right winger. Now, what they will have back tomorrow down at Nottingham Forest is a right-sided midfielder, not a winger. Can Tonali play on the wing? Given all the good things I've heard about him during the past week or so, building that piece, which isn't the link in the description below, I think he could play anywhere. Yeah, honestly, guys, they really have. What was said to me was Newcastle, when you asked the questions, what has gone on during the past 10 months, Newcastle said, we certainly haven't wasted it. It's not been a case of just, right, okay, he's ready now. Okay, Sandro, how have you been? Where are you going to slot in? They've identified key areas for improvement, namely the two have been his actual physical speed, coupled with as well his understanding of the marking system was mentioned to me, but the wider, he's had time now to download Eddie Howe's Newcastle playbook, so to speak. And there's been one of the quotes that was given to me as well, it's just a little vignette, and I won't give too much away from the piece, please read it, but there was a drill recently where they were working amongst a small group of players, and I think you were allowed about 60 seconds in between time to rest. Tonali didn't rest. He went and ran shuttles on his own for those 60 seconds. He's running his balls off. He is that determined to come back. And Eddie used the word this morning, to repay Newcastle for the faith and for everything else they have shown in him. And yeah, I don't think we can forget that before he went in those 12 games, yes, he had the wonderful debut against Aston Villa, and I think supporters wanted to believe he was this wonderful gladiator all the time. He wasn't. He actually played his way out the team after 4 matches. Sean Longstaff came in, and there were definite areas for improvement, and he wasn't as wonderful as everyone likes to remember. But is there a brilliant player in there? Yes, absolutely. Has he got the potential to come back and be a real game changer for Newcastle? Yes, I think he has. And that is based on everything which I've detailed in the feature, looking at Tonali and exactly what this reborn, returning star is going to give to Newcastle during the course of the coming season. Now, Kieran Trippier, is he going to go? It was described to me going into the weekend as around 50-50. With each passing day, I would say those odds tilt in favour of Newcastle keeping him. And goodness, do they have to keep him? I made my whole video about this on Sunday down at Bournemouth. He just showed us there why not only do they need him for the squad, they need him for the starting 11. Just put him in the team and tell him he's staying there and give him whatever he wants to make him happy, at least until January. Get through this first half of the season. If he does, harbour that desire to go for whatever reason it may be, on or off the pitch. So yeah, Eddie was asked about that this morning. He said he hasn't spoken to Kieran Trippier about anything other than football. He thinks he's in a good place. So Eddie is working to the plan of Trippier staying. Now, another one of Newcastle's veterans was also brought up this morning, Callum Wilson. We'd expected there was half a chance he might appear before the international break. Eddie confirmed this morning that isn't going to be the case. He's still out with the back problem. And yeah, I would like to see, on the back of that, another player we spoke about this morning, William Osula, being unused in the first couple. He did look exciting during that one pre-season game that he played at St James's Park. It might be the case that we see him down at Nottingham Forest tomorrow. Eddie did say he was going to make changes, but not the sort of changes you see sometimes elsewhere in the Carabao Cup. This will be, the likes of a Harvey Barnes coming in, Kieran Trippier coming in, players we should probably be playing on Sunday also, never mind just coming in for a Carabao Cup game. And wow, how big this one is, because Newcastle, they've only got 3 competitions this season. We've seen what the Carabao Cup has done for them in recent years, and I do believe anything other than a victory tomorrow, you can only win it, you can only lose ultimately. It's decided on the night. But I do think failure to progress would just rank up that pressure and just create a real negative vibe around the place. On the back of 2 performances, we've seen the off-the-field headlines more today in terms of not having the scope to bring in the players perhaps they need and perhaps they want, coupled with Kieran Trippier, the captaincy, everything else has been a little bit of a rocky start. Eddie in England, unanswered questions still there to be resolved. So yeah, it hasn't been the easiest of summers for Newcastle. They then come into the season, they don't play well against Southampton, they don't really, for me, play well down at Bournemouth. Eddie spoke to that this morning, saying yes, the battling, the battling qualities were there, but the actual quality itself wasn't. I would go along with that. I think there's going to be a big improvement if they are to be a top 4, top 5 club this season. So to that end, just to keep the mood and to keep the cup run and the season and the feel good alive, they've got to go to Forest and win tomorrow. And they've certainly got enough in terms of, you looked at that bench, enough strength there to pick a side to go and do that. In terms of my prediction, I'm going to go with Newcastle to somehow find a way through, just how they found a way to beat Southampton and just how they found to manage to extract a point from Sunday's game as well. So I'm going, yes, Newcastle victory on, why not have it on penalties? And wouldn't it be nice if the winning kick was scored by a certain Italian? Now, for the third and final time, please click on the link in the description below to take you through to that feature on Sandro Tonali. I'll be down at Nottingham Forest tomorrow night, bringing you my post-match thoughts afterwards. Loads of coverage to come in the WhatsApp channel as well. Please subscribe to our free Newcastle United dedicated WhatsApp channel. You've got my voice notes, my videos, my pictures, everything else in there. I'll put another link in the description below too, beneath the Sandro Tonali feature, the fourth and final time I've mentioned that. So yeah, guys, please hit like, subscribe, comment. There's the thanks button there now as well. And I'll see you again in just over 24 hours time from the City Ground. Okay, take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.